For many years, the conflict between Iran and Israel was a hidden war. It was fought in the shadows with spies and covert operations. This shadow war involved secret missions and cyber attacks. Each side tried to undermine the other without starting a full-scale conflict. This delicate and dangerous balance defined their relationship for decades. The world watched, hoping this tense situation would not explode into open combat. The rules of this secret engagement were understood by both nations, a dangerous game of chess played across the Middle East. However, this long-standing dynamic has now changed dramatically. The conflict has moved out of the shadows and into the open. In 2024, Iran launched major attacks against Israel. It used hundreds of missiles and advanced drones in these assaults. This marked a significant escalation, a shift from covert actions to direct military confrontation. Iran was no longer content to operate through its proxy forces alone. It was now willing to strike Israel directly from its own territory, a bold and risky move that altered the strategic landscape of the entire region. Israel's response was swift and powerful. The Israeli Defense Forces conducted precise, long-range airstrikes. These strikes showed Israel's impressive military capabilities. They could hit targets thousands of miles away with great accuracy. For example, Israeli jets targeted Houthi assets in Yemen, a key Iranian ally. This demonstrated that Israel was prepared to confront not just Iran, but its entire network of regional proxies, known as the Axis of Resistance. The message was clear: no target was beyond Israel's reach, and direct attacks would be met with overwhelming force. This new phase of open warfare has created a far more volatile situation. The old rules of engagement have been torn up. Both nations are now engaged in direct military actions, increasing the risk of a major regional war. This escalation involves not just the main powers but also their allies across the Middle East. Groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen are central to this broader conflict. The entire region is now a potential battlefield, with every action and reaction carrying the weight of a possible catastrophic war. The tension reached a critical point in June 2025. On June 13th, Israel launched a major preemptive strike against Iran. This was a decisive and highly controversial military action. The Israeli defense minister justified the attack, stating it was absolutely necessary. He claimed that Iran was preparing an imminent and large-scale missile and drone attack. The target, he said, was Israeli civilians. Israel argued that it had no choice but to act first to protect its population from a devastating assault that was just hours or days away. This Israeli claim was supported by intelligence from other nations. US and European officials confirmed the assessment. They believed that Israel was indeed facing a credible and immediate threat. They saw this as a moment of Iranian vulnerability, a window of opportunity for Israel to act. The intelligence suggested that Iran had amassed its forces for a coordinated attack. This international validation, though perhaps reluctant, gave Israel a degree of political cover for its preemptive strike, framing it as a defensive measure against a planned aggression. The strike itself was a complex military operation. It involved a coordinated effort by the Israeli Air Force, using advanced fighter jets and long-range missiles. The targets were carefully selected to degrade Iran's offensive capabilities. They included missile launch facilities, drone command centers, and key infrastructure of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The goal was not just to stop one attack, but to set back Iran's military program significantly. The operation was a display of Israel's military and intelligence superiority in the region. This preemptive strike likely represents a point of no return in the conflict. It has pushed both nations further down the path of direct confrontation. Iran's leadership, including Supreme Leader Khamenei, has vowed a powerful response. The IRGC and even Iran's conventional army, the Artesh, have been put on high alert. The cycle of attack and retaliation has now been firmly established. Each side feels it must respond to the other's actions with greater force, creating a dangerous spiral of escalation with no clear end in sight. The recent military escalation did not happen in a vacuum. It followed the complete breakdown of diplomatic negotiations. In the spring of 2025, the United States and Iran held 5 rounds of talks. The goal was to find a peaceful solution to the growing crisis. The US under President Trump hoped to secure a new deal that would limit Iran's nuclear ambitions. Hopes were cautiously optimistic that a diplomatic off-ramp could be found, pulling the region back from the brink of a major conflict and avoiding a direct military confrontation. However, these crucial talks ultimately failed. The main sticking point was Iran's uranium enrichment program. The United States proposed a plan to gradually phase out this activity. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, firmly rejected this proposal. He saw it as a violation of Iran's national sovereignty. On June 11, 2025, just before the Israeli strike, President Trump admitted he was less confident a deal could be reached. This public admission signaled that the diplomatic track was effectively dead, leaving military options as the most likely course of action. This diplomatic failure is directly linked to the growing nuclear tensions. Iran's nuclear program has always been at the heart of the conflict. Israel views a nuclear-armed Iran as an existential threat. In response to international pressure and a critical resolution from the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran threatened to leave the Non-Proliferation Treaty. This would remove all international oversight of its nuclear activities. This threat was a clear signal of Iran's willingness to escalate the nuclear standoff. The nuclear issue has become a ticking time bomb. In late 2024, Supreme Leader Khamenei hinted at a possible shift in Iran's official nuclear doctrine. For years, Iran had claimed its program was for peaceful purposes only. But his new statement suggested a readiness to develop nuclear weapons if the country's existence was threatened. This change in rhetoric, combined with Iran's advancing technical capabilities, has made the situation extremely dangerous. It has pushed Israel to consider military action as the only way to prevent Iran from crossing the nuclear threshold. The escalating conflict between Iran and Israel has sent shockwaves across the entire Middle East. The regional impacts are profound and widespread. In Lebanon, Israel had already launched a major operation in 2024 that significantly weakened Hezbollah. By late 2024, the Israeli Defense Forces had killed thousands of militants and seized vast caches of advanced weapons. In Yemen, the Houthis continue their attacks on international shipping, creating chaos in vital sea lanes. These proxy battlefields are now more volatile than ever, as the main sponsors are engaged in direct combat. International reactions have been mixed and deeply concerned. In the days before the Israeli strike, the United States took precautionary measures. It withdrew some diplomatic staff from Iraq and authorized military families to leave the Middle East. The United Kingdom issued warnings about new threats to commercial ships. Just one day before the strike, on June 12, 2025, the United Nations General Assembly voted overwhelmingly for a ceasefire in Gaza. This vote highlighted Israel's waning international support after more than 600 days of war, complicating its diplomatic standing. The future trajectory of this conflict is uncertain and fraught with peril. The political dynamics are complex. With Donald Trump back in the White House, there is pressure on Iran, but also a desire to avoid a new American war in the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has long advocated for a hardline stance against Tehran. Meanwhile, Iran has been strengthening its alliances with Russia and China. It hopes these global powers will provide it with diplomatic support and a shield against Western pressure at the United Nations. Looking ahead, the potential for a wider, more destructive war is dangerously high. The direct military exchanges have set a new, violent precedent. Iran may feel compelled to launch an even larger retaliatory attack to restore its deterrence. Israel, in turn, will be prepared to respond with even greater force. The risk of miscalculation by either side is enormous. Without a renewed and serious diplomatic effort, the Iran-Israel conflict is not just a ticking time bomb, it is a bomb whose fuse is already lit and burning fast.